Welcome back. In my last lecture on Sophocles' Oedipus the King, I was sure to give you a laundry list of terms to think about when reading Greek tragedy. And one that I kind of glossed over but didn't say enough about was the concept of the hero. That's B here on the list. So the heros, or hero, in Greek tragedy, I said was just the kind that we learned about in Homer, a human with some divine ancestry or blood. And this is true. This is still true. However, the role of the hero takes on a slightly different meaning in Greek tragedy. And here's why. In a Greek tragedy, there may be several people walking around who have god blood flowing through their veins. But the true hero of the play is the one who fits this criterion. In a Greek tragedy, everything the hero does to make things better will bring about the peripeteia, or negative turn of events, that takes place in the play. So everything the main character or hero does to make things better will make things worse. And this is how you can tell who's the hero in a Greek tragedy. There are some other ways too, and we'll talk about those as we go through Antigone and Medea. So without further ado, let's talk about Antigone. This was composed by Sophocles sometime before 442 BCE. That means this play is actually 13 years and change older than Oedipus, even though the events that take place in this play take place after Oedipus the king. Sophocles wrote this while he was sent to Samos because he was a military general. And he's a military commander, and so he's intimately involved with the affairs of state in ancient Athens. And yet, this play doesn't really seem to have anything obvious to do with the politics of the times. It's a little harder to read than Oedipus the King in that sense. Well, when Oedipus the King left off, this is what was happening. Oedipus was being led away from the city of Thebes, and his children were taken away from him, and everyone was sad. However, Oedipus had accomplished what he'd set out to do. Oedipus had discovered the killer of the king of Thebes, and he discovered the mystery of his own birth. Oedipus had discovered that he had killed his own father, and not only slept with his own mother, but also had 4 children with her. Well, the royal house of Thebes was in a bit of trouble, as you can see by looking at the chart I provided here. With Laius dead, and with Jocasta dead, and with Oedipus blinded and expelled from the city of Thebes, only one person was left to rule, and that was Creon. Creon decided to do the following. He decided he would share power equally with both Eteocles and Polynices, the sons of Oedipus and Jocasta, for the sake of preserving the peace. And here are the terms they came to. Creon would share power equally with Eteocles and Polynices in alternating years. And the first year for sharing power, Eteocles took the throne alongside Creon. However, at the end of the year, when Polynices came back to claim the throne that was rightfully his, it was denied to him by Eteocles and Creon, and this upset Polynices greatly. When Polynices went to complain to his father, Oedipus, about how he had been mistreated, Oedipus came back with this. Oedipus told him that he was cursed. You see, Oedipus had gained the gift of prophecy in his blindness, and was now able to predict the future of others. And what he tells Polynices is that both he and his brother are doomed to kill each other. And indeed, this is precisely what would happen. Polynices would go to Argos, and there get the help of the king of Argos and several other commanders. And they would lead 7 armies against Thebes. This is the topic of the 7 Against Thebes epic cycle. They attack Thebes and are defeated. And in a dramatic turn of events, both brothers do in fact kill each other. And this leaves us with the state of affairs at the beginning of this play. Creon is left to rule Thebes alone. He's left to rule a Thebes that has been rocked by civil war, and he needs to appear strong in a time of trouble. So he makes a bold proclamation. Eteocles will be buried with full military honors, but Polynices, the man who raised a hand against his home city of Thebes, will be left out in the sun to rot, a feast for the birds. Remember our readings in the Iliad, and remember how concerned the Greeks are with the way you look when you die, because this is how you will look for eternity. It was considered outrageous then to leave a body out in the sun unburied, especially a body that belonged to a family member. It should be no surprise to us then that Antigone, the sister of Polynices, wants to bury him and give him proper funeral honors. What does this mean in the ancient world? Well, it doesn't have to mean that she buries him 6 feet below the ground. It could just mean something as simple as a sprinkling of dust and the pouring of a libation, such as wine, over his head. This is precisely what she'll do. What are the punishments for burying the traitor? Creon has stated that the death penalty will be in place for anyone who goes so far as to bury Polynices. And in this case, it'll be a death sentence carried out by public stoning, a horrible way to die. Again, it's bold, but Creon needs to appear strong in a time of trouble. In the ancient Bronze Age was a time of warlords, who were often looking to trash each other's village at the first sign of weakness. Remember, these are the same people who went and sailed on Troy because of marital discord. Who are the personalities involved? Well, the biggest personalities involved in this play are Antigone herself, whose name means, like her ancestors, Creon, the king of the city of Thebes, and her uncle, whose name means ruler or master. And finally, we get Haemon, the son of Creon, who, by the way, happens to be Antigone's fiancé. So if you think about the family tree that I just showed you, this means that Antigone will be marrying a man who will be both her uncle and cousin. How's that for messed up? What does Haemon's name mean? Haemon's name means blood. Perhaps these names are appropriate for this play, because each character seems to be stating the case for a certain set of values. And let's talk about these. The big three in this play are religion, state, and family. Each of these characters seems to be concerned with these to some varying degree. So let's start with Antigone. What's she interested in? She's interested in family. She's most interested in burying her brother, and she values that above the state. She's most interested in what the gods would want, because that's important to her. How interested is she in love? Ask yourself this. How many times does she actually mention Haemon in this play? And would Antigone do the same thing for her children or spouse if she had them? And she answers this question for us. The answer is no. This seems shocking at first. The idea that people would view spouses or children as somehow infinite resources in the ancient world shouldn't be a strange idea to us. Here's why. You could get married again. You could have more children. But with both of her parents dead, she has a shortage of brothers, so she values burying of her brother more than getting married to her fiancé and more than her loyalty to the state. What's Creon interested in? He's very interested in the state. He famously gives the ship of state speech early on in the play, and he talks about how he's there to put the ship of state back on course. He's its captain. He's there to keep people safe. He's concerned about the laws that guide the state, and he's very concerned about the principle of loyalty, especially as it pertains to his family. The fact that Antigone rose up against him is shocking to him, because he values loyalty in others, but especially his family members. And here's why. If people are loyal to him, then he appears strong. If he appears strong, then the state is strong. If the state is strong, then he's less likely to be attacked by others. And so the safety of its citizens is tied up in all of this. And to his way of thinking, and it is slippery slope logic here, if one of these things falls out of place, if people stop being loyal to him, the entire state will fall and many of the citizens will perish. However, let's think about this. Creon, whose name means ruler, sometimes gets thought of by modern critics as somehow inflexible or completely unwilling to listen to the thoughts of others. However, is he unwilling to listen to any counsel when he knows he's wrong? And the answer to this is no. Of course, he rebuffs the prophet Tiresias when Tiresias comes to tell him what to do. But in the end, he listens to the counsel of his advisors. He listens to the chorus when they tell him what it is he should do. He should yield and go back on his previous word. Still, from the perspective of many, Antigone included, he appears to be like a tyrant. Tyrannos is the Greek word, and it means lord or master, or any absolute ruler whose powers go beyond the law or constitution. I guess you have to ask yourself this. Do Creon's powers go beyond the law or constitution? He says it himself in the play. He is the law, because he is the king. So maybe he is a kind of tyrant. It's really easy to say that Creon has no interest in family or religion. But I'd like to talk about how he addresses a couple of the issues raised by Antigone in her actions. He views his children as resources. That is, they're there to help him get what he wants. They are there to behave properly, and be obedient and not give his enemies a reason to laugh at him. Marriage doesn't really have a whole lot of appeal to him for the sake of love. However, some of his opinions regarding marriage as a political tool are not outrageous, especially when you consider the time in which this play was written. Creon is especially interested in having a good marriage for his son and making sure that produces legitimate heirs. When you consider the family background he has, maybe this isn't the craziest thing for him to be thinking about. Religion. Many have also tried to paint Creon as some sort of atheist who doesn't believe in the gods, and this is not the case. His argument is that there is no way the gods would wish to have a proper burial for a man who tried to murder his own family and burn down their temples. So he believes in the gods, but the idea of being wedded to death for death's sake, or to honor those who commit outrages, is too much. I would also add that Creon has a bit of anxiety over gender roles in his society. And people have criticized his character for this, and there's probably some truth in this. The servant does introduce Antigone to him as Princess Antigone. However, he's very concerned that she be in a servile role beneath him, and he says it several times. He's very concerned that she's going to dominate him in some way, and he criticizes his own son for acting like a slave to a woman because his son stands up for her. And he seems to have some anxiety here, but I also think he has anxiety about power in general and how it should be shared. What are the interests at Haman? Haman's interests are twofold. He's interested in family and compromise, and he wants both. However, by the end, he moves into a more extreme position. After Creon makes it clear that he's willing to go to any length to make sure that everyone is obedient to him, namely burying his own niece inside of a tomb outside of the city while she's still alive, he decides that he would rather be dead than live without his fiancée, and this is indeed an extreme Romeo and Juliet kind of position. He, like Antigone, ends up being wedded to death. They both choose it over life and marriage. And the question I would ask you this, in thinking about them and the nobility of their choices, is, were they forced into these decisions? That is, was there any point in the play where Antigone could have relented it in her position and the thing could have gone a different way? Did Haman have to defy his father and kill himself? Lastly, I'd like to point out that just like in Sophocles' Oedipus the King, this play makes use of evocative imagery in its language. Farming, sex, death, family, sailing, and marriage all appear in spades. Stay tuned for my next lecture on Euripides' Medea.